Simpson was tragically stabbed to death in Brixton, aged just 20, as he did the honourable thing and tried to save someone else's life. Dr Victor Elisa, a former chief superintendent with the Met Police. And we'll be hearing from Bobby Kasanga, who spent 8 years in prison for armed robbery and I'm told has turned his life around, and he now runs a football club in Hackney, London, and works to keep young people away from crime. Welcome, everybody. I just want to start, Lorraine, with you. Every day we hear of yet more tragedy. As a mother who lost her son, how did you feel when you heard about that 9-year-old girl last night?
I'm still choked up. It's like we're experiencing a horror which we dreaded 8 years ago. And the violence has escalated out of London across the country. An 9-year-old girl, innocent, shot in the chest. If this isn't a wake-up call for everybody to come together to deal with this, I don't know what it's going to take.
I'm with you. And you know what I find really frustrating is that we talk about it. Bobby, welcome to the show. I wanted to do this a little bit differently, and I hope you understand why. I know you've turned your life around, but people watching this tonight are going, apart from the fact that we can't afford to survive, a lot of us right now, how the hell are we supposed to walk outside the front door for fear of what happened to that kid? Explain to me how you ended up being jailed for 8 years for armed robbery. How did you get into that situation, Bobby?
Peer pressure, lack of opportunities, no positive role models, inequalities, and ultimately, beyond all of that, is choice and greed. Because we can talk about all these things I've talked about, the lack of equality, lack of opportunities, but there's so many people who came from the same environment as me who didn't choose the lifestyle I did. So
I like your honesty. Did you carry a gun or a knife? What did you carry?
We used to carry knives. Obviously, we've had guns and that before as well, but it wasn't anything that actually ever used. It was just in participation of the robberies at the time. And it comes down to deprivation as well, thinking that you need something that you actually don't. You see all these things everyone else has and you believe you need them, but we was naive, we didn't have the knowledge to know that you have to be patient. So that's why when we work with our young people now, it's all about teaching them patience and just allowing and waiting for your time, because everyone that was doing these things with me, I've got over 20 people who I can say have been killed that I knew personally. I've got another over 20 who are doing life in prison. So although I've come out of that system, I've lost many friends along the way because of that same system.
When you looked at that news last night of that 9-year-old, what was the first thing that went through your head?
Absolutely shocking, because even in any form of criminality that you take part in, everyone knows the kind of saying is that women and kids is a no-go area. So for someone to go and do that is absolutely disgusting. When
you look at her, look her in the eyes. Her son was stabbed to death. You carried a knife. What do you say to her?
I mean, I've met the lady many, many times, and we've spoken a few times, and it's a thing that where I know now, when I was younger, I was 14, 15, 16...
It's a lot of that. Help me out. You're very honest, because a lot of people go inequality or opportunity. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So many of the kids who end up in gangs gravitate towards that unit because the family life isn't great. Are we right to blame parents in many instances or not?
No, because my parents were both hard-working. They were strict with me. It all comes down to, again, choices and the fear of missing out. Parents told me, be home at 8 p.m. Your friends are hanging out. So the first thing you start doing, be disobedient to your parents by going, well, I'm going to hang around a bit later on, because you're fearing the missing out of the fun that everyone's having.
What did they say when you went to prison for 8 years?
Oh, they were disappointed. They were absolutely disappointed, gutted, because I was in the top set at school. It wasn't like I was someone that didn't know what I was doing. I willingly took part in the activities that I did because I was greedy and I wanted to compete and keep up with the Joneses. Everyone else had nice things. I wanted to be with them. My parents couldn't really afford it, but it was my choice.
Victor, former Met Police Superintendent, I speak to the police the whole time. Peter Blexley would be an example, and he says that police, men and women, don't have the time anymore to deal with petty crime because they're social workers, they're mental health operatives. That stat, that crimes under £1,000 is something like just not being investigated. Yeah. We have heard every plan and this great desire to reduce the levels of knife crime, gun crime, just the lawlessness that we're talking about. What needs to happen? What is the solution, in your mind?
Well, I mean, you'll have politicians say that we can't police our way out of problems, but I think the police can play a really significant part. You know, taking what we're talking about at the moment, the examples you've given, those people involved, whether it's the offender with the gun, where the 9-year-old girl was tragically shot, whether it's the 58-year-old pensioner who was stabbed, those people are carrying weapons in public places. Now, how do we incentivise, prepare our police so they can do their work in public places? No, the stabbing takes place in private, you know, in the stabbing off Oxford Street, in the premises. You don't expect the police to be in there, but give the police the opportunity, the time to do the work on the streets.
It's one of the things that actually the police are too busy, no disrespect to any of them, I think they're great, but they're too busy filling out forms and ticking boxes on computers, rather walking the beat and finding out intel and doing the job that they used to go. Have we moved policing away from that common touch, and that's why we're missing out? That's the first question.
Well, that is the first question. There is bureaucracy, but again, you know, I guess we can't put that away because police officers work independently. And when we want to hold them to account, the only way we can do that is through the records that they've made. And we can't move away from that. But what we can do is reduce that bureaucracy. We can actually give the police the time to be able to do some of the work we want them to do on the street. And more importantly, you talk about the other issues. You describe them as social work issues. Well, there are other public agencies who should be doing that. Absolutely. You know, when I was a cop, I've retired for, 5 years. Prior to that, my officers would go and deal with someone who had a mental health problem. They would spend 2 or 3 hours. Now they're spending 6, 7 hours because the other public agencies are not being compelled to contribute to the work that needs doing. You can't blame the police for that because the police can't walk away. If they get called, they have to go and deal with it.
Lorraine, one of the things that I think really strongly about, you might agree or disagree, is I don't believe that the punishments are strong enough. I look at what happened with acid. They gave life imprisonment to acid, and it is with absolutely a known fact that those crimes are going to... Do we need to be stronger on people who carry knives and guns?
Most definitely. My son's killer got 12 years. He done half of that. He's out enjoying his life. My son's gone for good, and we've been affected for life. The sentencing needs to be revised and modernised. There's no way you can give a higher sentence for a robbery than for taking someone's life. My son's killer, he was sentenced for manslaughter because of how the criminal justice system label years and how it came about that he's killed my son. It's outrageous. So that area definitely needs looking at. It's not acceptable because more and more are carrying knives and guns, and they're younger. Younger. The youngest child I was called by a parent to report an incident at school was 7 years old. He brought a scissors from home, a sharp one, and stabbed the other boy in the leg. 7 years old.
Bobby?
Yep.
I agree with Lorraine about the criminal justice system. I'm sorry if people don't like it. I think that the sentencing should be much stronger, and I really do believe that. As a kid who perpetrated towards a gang and was out on the street, did you think, A, you could get away with it? Did you not consider the implications? And do you today, the man that has turned his life round and runs this football club in Hackney and gets kids to understand that they need to change their lives, do you think if the punishments were greater, that would help the situation?
I think there needs to be a balance. I think you can't write someone completely off. There's some people, like myself, where prison works and there's rehabilitation. I went to prison and decided to get a degree while I was in there. There's others who won't learn, who come in, go back out again. So there needs to be a kind of a balance. Maybe someone gets given a very harsh sentence and then you monitor them throughout the sentence. Are they doing the right courses? Are they doing the right things? Are they getting a degree?
But you'd understand, her son's killer got 12 years and he's out after 6. That's an absolute... What does that say?
100%. I get that. But I guess he was sentenced to manslaughter, so the court judged him to have committed manslaughter compared to murder.
He was out, and then he was recalled back after 6 years. So, like what you're saying, there needs to be some restorative justice. We can't just put them in prison and leave them there. They're learning all sorts in there, and they're coming out raving mad. I don't know if this man that has shot and killed this child has reoffended. There needs to be restorative justice.
Do you agree with that quickly, Victor, and I've got to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be a balance, but we need to be very clear. For those people that you know, Bobby's talking about those people who will not respond to the imprisonment, then we need to throw the book at them. But we need to be clear, there are some people who are just so bad, prison's the only thing for them. But we also need, there are people like Bobby who respond, you know,